You wake to the steady drip of rain leaking through the rotten roof above your head, each droplet measured like a dreary metronome ticking off your drearier existence. This cramped, damp room is your world, your prison, your unwanted sanctuary. The scent is always the same: mildew mixed with the pungent aroma of the moldy straw that you sleep upon each night. Straw, infested with lice, fleas, and other small creatures you have given up chasing away. They seem as much at home here as you are. The walls of your tiny hut, patched crudely with mud, straw, and whatever scraps you could find, offer little shelter from the biting winds or the endless chill. The few bits of daylight slipping through gaps in the wood and clay are cold, pale, and unkind. They illuminate nothing but the reality of your bitter solitude, punctuated by the whispers from villagers who dare not come too close, but linger nearby in suspicious groups. You shift slightly, your bones aching from the hard night's sleep, and stare at the cracked pottery bowl by your bedside. Empty, of course. Hunger gnaws at your belly like a relentless rat. Meals are never promised, often mere scraps of barley or stale bread thrown your way by villagers who wish to keep you satisfied enough not to curse them, but never enough to truly keep you well fed. They fear your powers, though you've explained countless times that you hold no dominion over fate, only the grim certainty of what awaits them. As the dim light crawls further into your small home, you feel dread settling over your heart. Today, just like every day before, you must venture out into the mud and the filth among the villagers who despise and yet need you. Your ability, the cruel gift of knowing what awaits, is as much your burden as your curse. You see suffering, illness, starvation, and death long before it arrives, yet your voice is drowned in skepticism and superstition. And when your warnings prove true, the villagers blame you anyway, as if your words have summoned the very tragedies you foresaw. With reluctance, you sit up, the rough wool cloak heavy upon your shoulders, stained with dirt and smelling of smoke and sweat. There's no mirror in your hut, but you don't need one to imagine your appearance. Pale, thin, face drawn from endless worry, eyes darkened with knowledge you wish you could unsee. Your tangled hair, once perhaps your only pride, hangs limply about your shoulders, matted with grime. Outside, voices begin to stir, sharp and ragged, carrying conversations of crops failing again this season, livestock dying mysteriously overnight, and strange fevers sweeping through households like ghostly reapers. You know already who among them will fall next, who will grieve, who will lose their final harvest. But they don't ask, not yet. They will wait until desperation overtakes suspicion, and then they'll come knocking at your door, demanding answers you wish you did not possess. Slowly you rise, slipping worn leather shoes onto your sore, calloused feet. They're too thin to protect you from the mud and filth that swallows the streets, but they're all you have. You grab your shawl, threadbare and frayed, wrapping it tightly around you, a futile shield against the bitter dampness seeping through every crack and gap in your home. Before stepping outside, you pause at the doorway, your hand resting on the rough wood. Once again, you wonder if today might be the day they decide your warnings are no longer worth enduring and finally drive you from the village, or worse. The door opens with a creak, revealing a world just as bleak as you expect. The village is shrouded in a gray mist, turning every hut, every fence post, every weary face into vague shapes made of smoke. As you step into the thick mud, it clings greedily to your shoes, dragging your feet down with each reluctant step. Filth runs freely down the narrow pathways, trickling from huts where waste and refuse are tossed out carelessly. The villagers move about their tasks, carrying wood, hauling buckets from the half poisoned well, tending to animals sick and healthy alike, with hollow eyes and weary resignation. A few women pause as you pass, whispering amongst themselves, drawing closer to shield their children as though you might spread misfortune simply by existing. You ignore them. You've learned that arguing against ignorance only deepens their suspicion. Instead, you continue through the muddy paths toward the distant fields where crops, thin and feeble, struggle against the cold, merciless ground. You stop by a low fence, half rotten and leaning precariously. Here, old Marcus tends his pigs, creatures thin and sullen, snouts buried hopelessly in mud that provides little sustenance. You catch his gaze, knowing his prize sow will not survive another night. You think of speaking, warning him, yet remain silent. He won't listen. He never listens, not until it's too late. As you linger, the village priest passes nearby, eyeing you with practiced suspicion, silently blaming you for every misfortune that befalls his flock. You meet his eyes briefly, your gaze carrying the weight of too many truths he refuses to accept. You've given up trying to explain yourself. His sermons, loud and condemning, echo endlessly, branding you as unclean, damned, a witch who plays with dark forces. You are neither witch nor devil, but merely burdened with a gift that grants no power, only sorrow. The drizzle picks up, turning quickly to heavy rain, soaking through your shawl until it clings miserably to your skin. You turn back toward your hut, footsteps heavy and slow. Inside your home is no better, but it offers the illusion of shelter from judging eyes and sharp whispers. Stepping inside, you collapse onto your filthy straw mattress, body aching from a short journey that feels eternal. As you lie in quiet misery, you remember clearly the first time your sight revealed itself. A child barely 7 winters old, suddenly overcome with visions of future sickness and death. Your mother, horrified and fearful, dragged you to the priest, who branded you a cursed child, tainted by something unholy. Ever since, you have lived alone, separated from even basic human compassion. Sleep finally overtakes you, restless and brief, filled with dreams as cruel as your waking life. Visions of tomorrow swim before your eyes. Visions of the butcher's youngest daughter succumbing to fever, the blacksmith's forge burning uncontrollably, villagers accusing one another of dark deeds they do not comprehend. You awake abruptly, heart pounding with the knowledge you carry every waking moment. Your life is merely a tapestry of miseries, woven tightly by the cruel hands of fate. Yet, despite the bitterness and emptiness of your days, you rise once more, condemned to repeat the cycle again tomorrow. For that is the true curse of your sight. Not that you can predict the misery around you, but that you must endlessly endure it. The morning is colder than yesterday, as if the village itself wishes to punish you for waking. You push open your flimsy door to confront yet another day of relentless discomfort. Instantly, you're assaulted by a rush of frigid air, sharpened by the sickly sweet stench of decay and human waste. The ground beneath your feet squelches audibly, gripping your worn leather shoes with every step. The village street, more mud than pathway, sucks greedily at your feet, as though trying to claim you permanently. You begin your reluctant journey through the familiar maze of squalor. The villagers are already stirring, grumbling quietly as they scrape filth from doorways and empty buckets of waste directly into the street. You step carefully, mindful of the cascading refuse from second-story windows. The village never truly awakens from its perpetual grime. Instead, it merely shifts in its sleep, restless and uncomfortable, perpetually trapped in misery. Passing a row of dilapidated houses, you catch the eyes of the villagers watching you from cracked shutters. Their wary gazes are tinged with an unsettling blend of suspicion, hostility, and desperate curiosity. Whispers follow you, mingling seamlessly with the ever present sounds of sickly livestock and hungry children. You already know what they're saying, calling you a witch, a dark prophetess, blaming your mere presence for every blighted crop, every illness, every sudden misfortune. You pull your threadbare shawl tighter around your shoulders, a futile gesture against the persistent chill. Nearby, an elderly woman sits hunched against a rotting fence, her wrinkled hands trembling as she attempts to repair a torn sack. Your gaze locks with hers momentarily. You know, in painful detail, her fate. She won't see the next spring. The vision presses upon you heavily, a relentless burden you can neither escape nor ease. You hurry past, pretending ignorance, as though your blindness might somehow shield her from truth. Near the village well, a cluster of men gathers, their voices low and sharp with urgency. The well itself, deep and ancient, serves water murky and tainted, as bitter as the villagers' lives. You pause cautiously, straining to overhear their murmured conversation. As always, your presence silences them immediately, their faces tightening with suspicion. You understand their thoughts without needing any special insight. If crops fail or cattle perish, they will find a way to lay blame squarely upon you. Your mere existence invites accusation, and each day you draw breath feels like another crime you unknowingly commit. Ahead, a child's sudden cry pierces the air, followed by the mother's sharp reprimand. You turn your head in time to see a small, pale faced girl, her eyes glassy with fever, stumbling through the mud toward home. Your throat tightens painfully. You recognize the child, the blacksmith's daughter, whose fate you glimpsed the previous night. A small, desperate part of you wishes you could help, yet bitter experience has taught you that any intervention would only accelerate your own doom. You continue onward, pretending not to notice as the girl collapses weakly against her mother's skirts. Approaching the narrow path leading out of the village center, you weave between bodies huddled against walls, begging quietly for crusts of bread or scraps of pity. Many villagers bear visible signs of sickness, skin blotchy and pale, eyes sunken from constant hunger. Those less fortunate lie motionless against cold stones, ignored entirely as though already ghosts. Their fate requires no visions to foresee. Death awaits them quietly, patiently, inevitably. Eventually, your daily walk leads you to the outskirts, where neglected fields lie barren beneath bleak skies. Rows of brittle crops, bent and lifeless, stretch like skeletal fingers toward an indifferent heaven. Farmers wander listlessly, prodding at blackened stalks in hopeless attempts to salvage even a handful of grain. You pass silently by, acutely aware of your own powerlessness. Your visions never bring comfort, only confirmation of inevitable loss. As you turn back toward the village, your path takes you through an especially foul section of ground, flooded by stagnant pools of muddy water and waste. You pick your way carefully, balancing precariously atop uneven stones, your worn shoes slipping treacherously with each step. Suddenly, the stone beneath your foot shifts unexpectedly, plunging your leg knee deep into the murky filth. The cold, viscous liquid clings greedily, soaking through clothing and skin, leaving you shivering and nauseous. Nearby, villagers watching from the shadows mutter darkly, laughing cruelly at your misfortune. You extricate yourself slowly, humiliation burning your cheeks. A fresh chorus of whispers rises around you, speculating openly about curses and witchcraft. The priest himself steps from the church door, observing you from afar, eyes filled with self righteous condemnation. You meet his gaze briefly, aware of the silent judgment he passes, branding you again as an embodiment of sin and misfortune. Drenched, shivering, and filthy, you finally reach your hut once more, grateful for its feeble shelter from prying eyes. The familiar dampness and stench almost seem welcoming compared to the cruelty outside. Stripping off soaked garments, you rinse your limbs hurriedly with icy water collected from yesterday's rain, a useless attempt to cleanse away not just the grime, but the sense of despair clinging insistently to your bones. You collapse onto your straw bedding, exhaustion gnawing at every muscle. The day is only half done, yet feels endless already. Lying quietly, you consider again the bitter irony of your life. Gifted with knowledge, yet utterly helpless, blessed with foresight, yet eternally cursed by ignorance and superstition. Sleep threatens briefly, carrying visions of suffering still to come. Faces swim before your closed eyes. Old Marcus, discovering his prize pig dead, the blacksmith mourning his lost daughter, the elderly woman unable to rise from her sickbed. Each vision weighs heavily, pressing you deeper into the straw mattress until it feels as though you might vanish entirely beneath their oppressive weight. Eventually, the village noises fade slightly, replaced by the rhythmic drip of water leaking through your leaky roof once more. You allow the sound to lull you into a restless half sleep, haunted by the knowledge that tomorrow, the day after, and every day thereafter will follow precisely the same pattern: filth, suspicion, accusation, loss. Your daily walks, you realize bitterly, are nothing more than endless circles within a hopeless maze, each path leading you inevitably back to the same miserable corner of existence, a corner you have neither power nor hope to escape. You hear their footsteps approaching your door even before the morning light manages to seep through the cracks in your hut's rotting walls. They come early today, earlier than usual, as though their desperation cannot wait another hour. You lie still, eyes fixed blankly on the ceiling where rainwater has pooled overnight, darkening the moldy straw thatching and dripping rhythmically onto the muddy floor. The knocking starts tentatively, then quickly grows more insistent, sharp, impatient raps punctuated by muffled whispers. Reluctantly, you rise from your makeshift bed, shivering from the cold. Wrapping your tattered shawl tightly around your shoulders, you approach the door, heart sinking with each weary step. You already know what awaits you: the familiar faces twisted by fear, desperation, and resentment. Their pleas will be coded in false respect, their gratitude thin and fleeting. And you, powerless yet burdened by unwanted insight, must once again confront the truth they refuse to accept. You open the door slowly, squinting against the dim, miserable dawn. Standing there, huddled closely together, are villagers whose faces you know too well: young Tomas, the miller's son; Marjorie, the weaver's anxious wife; and beside them, old Marcus, whose eyes brim with barely restrained grief. Behind them stand others, quiet, uneasy, unwilling to fully reveal their presence, yet drawn irresistibly by the hope, or perhaps dread, of your predictions. Thomas steps forward first, clutching his wool cap nervously in trembling hands. His voice shakes as he addresses you, eyes flickering with fear and distrust. "Forgive us disturbing you so early," he mutters, though his apology carries no genuine remorse. "But the blacksmith's daughter fell ill overnight. Her fever worsened quickly. We fear," you nod quietly, already aware. "You saw her fate long before it struck, yet you remained silent, for who would believe your words, much less act upon them? Now that disaster has arrived, the villagers descend upon you, demanding answers from the same lips they curse behind closed doors. You want to know if she'll live, you say, your voice flat, devoid of false hope." Marjorie gasps softly, covering her mouth with shaking fingers. Marcus lowers his head, as though your words alone have sealed the child's fate. Tomas hesitates, clearly uncertain whether he truly wants the truth. "Yes," he whispers finally, voice tight with dread. You gaze beyond them, toward the darkened village street, gray mist swirling around their hunched shoulders. You consider briefly sparing them, giving false comfort, but truth has always been your bitter burden. Deception has never eased their suffering, it has merely postponed it. "She will not see tomorrow," You say quietly, but clearly, she will pass before the sun sets. Marjorie chokes on a sob, stepping backward as though your words themselves might be infectious. Marcus crosses himself hastily, eyes darting between you and the group, seeking reassurance that their suspicions are justified, that you indeed bear responsibility for their misfortunes. Can nothing be done? Thomas asks, voice cracking. You shake your head solemnly. Nothing. A heavy silence settles over the gathered villagers, broken only by distant sounds of morning tasks, doors creaking open, animals bleating weakly, buckets scraping against the stones of the poisoned well. Eventually, Tomas nods grimly, backing away slowly, eyes lowered. Marcus remains, his gaze narrowed, accusatory. My prize pig was found dead this morning, he growls, voice strained. You knew, didn't you? You sigh deeply, meeting his angry stare. I saw it, you admit plainly, but what could you have done? You could have warned me. His voice rises, echoing harshly through the still morning air. Or did you prefer to watch me suffer? The accusation, though familiar, still stings bitterly. You take a cautious step forward, feeling the weight of every misfortune, every tragedy you foresaw, yet failed to prevent. You wouldn't have listened, you say softly, tiredly. None of you ever do. Marcus opens his mouth, ready to protest, but he hesitates, his eyes flickering uncertainly. He knows you're right, though he'll never admit it aloud. After a long, tense moment, he turns away abruptly, storming off down the muddy street without another word. The others scatter quickly, whispering anxiously among themselves, leaving you once again isolated, standing alone on your doorstep, drained and shaking from the weight of their accusations. Returning inside, you sink weakly onto your straw mattress, listening to the rain begin once more, the ceaseless patter matching the slow beat of your aching heart. Your mind drifts unwillingly back to memories of past visitors, mothers seeking the fate of sons at war, lovers desperate to learn if their partners still drew breath, farmers terrified that another winter would leave them starved and helpless. You saw their futures, clear as day, losses, deaths, suffering, yet your warnings brought only suspicion and blame. They wanted comforting lies. Truth merely drove them further into anger and fear. Hours pass slowly, and just as your trembling body settles into a restless sleep, another knock jolts you awake. This time, louder, harsher, more demanding, heart heavy, you open the door once again to find the blacksmith himself, broad shouldered and furious, standing before you. His daughter is gone, your prophecy fulfilled sooner than even you expected. You killed her, he snarls, eyes burning with hatred and grief. Your cursed words brought death upon my home. You mistake sight for power, you say quietly, attempting reason. I only spoke what was already written. But he does not hear you, cannot hear you through the agony of loss and the blinding veil of superstition. He steps forward, looming over you threateningly. You brace yourself, expecting violence, yet his clenched fists remain rigidly at his sides. The priest was right, he spits bitterly. You bring misery. Perhaps it's time we rid ourselves of your curse. He turns abruptly, storming away, leaving you shaking at your doorway. The villagers, watching silently from their huts, begin whispering again, words echoing like a chorus of condemnation. Slowly, painfully, you retreat into the meager comfort of your shelter, shutting the door tightly, though knowing it offers little defense against their hatred. You slump wearily onto the cold floor, body trembling, mind numbed by exhaustion and fear. It has happened before, this cycle of blame and threat. Yet each time feels closer, each accusation sharper, each threat more credible. The villagers' desperation is growing, their anger escalating as conditions worsen. You have become their scapegoat, the unwilling prophet of their ruin. Sitting quietly in the gloom, you wonder bleakly how long it will be before their patience snaps entirely, before mere words no longer satisfy their hunger for vengeance. Deep within, you already know the answer. It is only a matter of days, perhaps hours, before they return, not merely seeking answers, but revenge. And this time, there will be nowhere left to hide. The monthly market arrives with grim predictability, a bleak carnival of poverty and despair, masquerading briefly as a gathering of commerce and community. Dawn breaks cold and wet, as always, the pale sky smothered beneath a heavy layer of gray clouds that promise more rain and less hope. You sit in your hut, reluctant to leave its suffocating confines. Yet necessity pulls you forth once again, dragging you unwillingly toward the muddy square at the center of the village. Outside, the village streets fill slowly, villagers shuffling through the filth like shadows, carrying their meager wares, stale bread, sour ale, threadbare fabrics, rusted tools. The stench of rot and decay mingles thickly with the acrid scent of unwashed bodies, creating a choking fog that envelops everything. Your stall, a crude structure of tattered canvas propped upon splintered sticks, stands at the far end of the market, isolated from the rest, as though your presence might contaminate whatever fragile prosperity remains. You settle behind the splintered wooden table, draped with an old cloth bearing faded symbols long forgotten. Your cards, battered and yellowed from endless handling, rest beside your palm, cold and lifeless as the fate they predict. Your breath fogs before your face, each exhalation a small cloud of bitter resignation. You wait silently, knowing it will not take long for the desperate and superstitious to find you, their curiosity outweighing their suspicion, their need overpowering their fear. Sure enough, the first arrives quickly, an old woman whose swollen joints twist painfully beneath threadbare wool garments. Her eyes are clouded by cataracts, and she trembles slightly as she places a dry, stale loaf of bread on your table. Payment. Hunger gnaws at your belly, but your appetite vanished long ago, replaced only by a gnawing emptiness of spirit. She leans forward, voice quivering. Tell me, seer, will my grandson return from the war? Will he still know me? You take her frail hands gently, briefly allowing yourself to pity her before your vision pierces the veil of uncertainty. You see clearly, battlefields strewn with corpses, faces you recognize vaguely, though barely human beneath grime and blood. Her grandson lies among them, face pale and rigid, eyes staring blankly at a sky indifferent to their sacrifice. But you hesitate, wary of inflicting yet another wound upon her battered soul. Yet truth demands obedience. He will not return, you say quietly. He fell long ago, far from home. She recoils sharply, pulling back her hands as though your words burn her skin. She takes the bread hastily, stammering accusations beneath her breath as she flees. Your heart sinks, but the familiar ache dulls quickly, replaced only by resignation. Another prophecy fulfilled, another life shattered. The next visitor approaches cautiously, a young woman with tired eyes, clutching a sickly infant wrapped in filthy rags. Her gaze shifts anxiously, torn between desperation and mistrust. She sets down a small lump of cheese, dry and crumbling, as her offering. Will my son survive? She whispers. Her voice cracks painfully. The fever is strong. Tell me he'll live. Your fingers brush the child's forehead lightly, sensing the heat radiating beneath clammy skin. The visions come quickly, unmercifully clear. You see his shallow breathing cease, his small body stilled forever beneath rough blankets. Your throat tightens, reluctant to speak, yet knowing silence offers no mercy. He will not, you say softly, sorrow evident despite yourself. The fever claims him by morning. She recoils in horror, clutching her child protectively, glaring at you with hatred born of grief and denial. She snatches the cheese from your table, shouting loud enough for passers-by to hear. You curse us! You speak only death! Heads turn. Suspicious whispers ripple through the crowd, and soon the villagers give your booth an even wider berth. Yet still, the desperate trickle forth, farmers desperate for predictions of crops that you know will fail, soldiers doomed to never return, lovers separated by illness and poverty. Each story unfolds before your weary eyes like a never ending tapestry of misery. As the afternoon wears on, the rain returns, falling in icy sheets, soaking through your ragged shawl, chilling your bones. You sit, shivering, as mud seeps beneath your feet, pooling around the legs of your makeshift table. Customers thin out, the market rapidly dissolving into sullen merchants packing their few unsold wares, muttering bitterly about another wasted day. You begin packing your belongings as well, hands stiff and numb, thoughts dulled by exhaustion and hopelessness. Yet, as you rise, ready to leave behind this wretched square until next month's miserable gathering, a final figure approaches, someone unexpected and unwelcome. The village priest himself, stern and accusing. You peddle despair, he intones harshly, his voice carrying easily above the dwindling market din. You poison our hearts with your false visions. They are not false, you answer quietly, meeting his fiery gaze. I merely see clearly what awaits. His eyes narrow dangerously. You toy with darkness, woman. You so fear to control us. Perhaps it is time we cleanse our village of your corruption. His voice echoes, drawing the attention of the remaining villagers, who gather cautiously, drawn by the promise of confrontation. You recognize the hunger in their eyes, not for truth, but for blame. The priest continues, growing louder, emboldened by the growing crowd. Do we not suffer enough? He shouts dramatically. Do we not struggle daily with hunger, sickness, and loss? Yet this witch profits from our misery. Murmurs of agreement ripple among the villagers, their gazes sharpening with anger. Fear tightens your chest as the crowd presses closer, eyes gleaming ominously. You raise your voice, pleading desperately to be heard. I do not cause your suffering, you cry, your voice breaking. I only speak what I see. But the priest silences you, his voice drowning out yours effortlessly, his words thick with righteous condemnation. Tonight we must decide. Do we allow her evil to persist, or do we free ourselves of her curse once and for all? The villagers roar their agreement, their faces twisted with a newfound determination, eager to blame you, to punish you for their endless misfortunes. You stumble backward, nearly losing your footing in the slippery mud, your eyes wide with terror as the crowd moves closer, shouting threats and accusations. Burn her! Someone cries harshly from the mob. Others echo it immediately, their voices rising in a deafening chant. You see clearly your own fate, revealed at last. Flames, pain, darkness, the bitter, inevitable outcome of your cursed existence. Panicked, you turn and flee into the gathering darkness, pursued by angry voices that follow you mercilessly through the village streets. Your shawl catches branches, your feet sink into cold mud, heart pounding wildly in your chest. The villagers eventually stop their pursuit, satisfied they've delivered their threat clearly, but their message rings painfully in your ears. Your days in the village are numbered. Finally reaching the fragile sanctuary of your hut, you collapse onto the straw mattress, chest heaving painfully, eyes filling with tears of exhaustion and despair. Outside, rain pounds relentlessly, mocking your misery. Your visions have shown you countless horrors, yet none terrifies you so deeply as what awaits next. Tomorrow. For now you know with certainty the market day was merely the beginning of your end. Nightfall comes swiftly, heavy and merciless, dragging a curtain of darkness over the village like a burial shroud. You lie motionless on your ragged bed, body aching, limbs trembling from exhaustion, and the bitter cold seeping through every crevice of your small hut. The echoes of angry voices still linger in your ears, their threats as real as the chill biting your skin. The village has turned against you fully now. Fear and superstition have sharpened their hatred to a deadly edge. You know there will be no reprieve, no mercy. They will come again, perhaps tonight, perhaps tomorrow, to fulfill their threats. Shadows dance across your ceiling, cast by the flickering flames of your small fire. Wood is scarce, but you allow yourself the small luxury tonight, knowing it may well be your last. The meager warmth barely reaches you, but even its fragile comfort is welcome. You stare into the flames, seeking answers, seeking solace, but finding only reflections of your sorrow and isolation. Your mind drifts backward through memories, each one tinged with regret and futility. Your childhood, marred by rejection and fear. Your youth, defined by unwanted visions and relentless alienation. Your adult life, spent in ceaseless loneliness, forever bearing the burden of truths no one wished to hear. You recall each face clearly, every villager you've warned, every tragedy you've foreseen, every loss you've suffered silently alongside them, powerless to change a single moment. A sudden knocking jars you from your thoughts, loud, insistent, foreboding. Your heart jolts painfully. Fear wraps icy fingers around your throat, squeezing tightly. You rise unsteadily, clutching your shawl around your shoulders, taking slow, measured steps toward the door, already knowing who awaits beyond. Opening the door reveals a group of villagers led by the stern faced priest. Torchlight flickers harshly against their faces, casting them in grim relief, eyes reflecting determination fueled by ignorance and desperation. Their silence chills you more than any shouted accusation could. You must come with us, the priest says coldly. His voice holds no anger now, only grim resolve. You follow quietly, knowing resistance would merely hasten the inevitable. The villagers form a tight circle around you, their silence oppressive, broken only by the squelch of feet through mud, the crackle of torch flames, the pounding of your terrified heart. They lead you to the village square, still muddy and churned from the market. In the center, a crude wooden pyre awaits, hastily constructed, yet solid enough to fulfill its grim purpose. Your breath catches sharply, panic rising, vision swimming with dread. You stumble slightly, your knees weak, but strong hands grip your arms, forcing you forward. Villagers gather quickly, their faces filled with anticipation, dread, and a terrible hunger for vengeance. The priest steps forward, voice ringing loudly through the silence. This woman has poisoned our village, bringing misery, disease, and death with her dark visions. She claims foresight, but her words bring only suffering and fear. His eyes find yours, cold and unyielding. Tonight, we rid ourselves of her curse. A roar of approval rises from the crowd, chilling you to the bone. You're dragged roughly forward, tied hastily yet securely to the pyre. Wood scratches against your skin, splinters biting painfully into flesh, but the physical discomfort is nothing compared to the terror clutching your chest. Do you have any final words? The priest demands harshly, torch raised high. Your gaze sweeps slowly across faces filled with hatred and ignorance. Their blindness sickens you, angers you, yet beneath that anger is profound sorrow. You know them better than they know themselves, their struggles, their sufferings, their humanity twisted by fear and despair. Your suffering will not end with me, you say, voice shaking, but clear enough for all to hear. I was never the source of your misery, only the messenger. Burning me will not save you. They jeer loudly, dismissing your words as desperate pleas of a condemned woman. The priest lowers the torch, flames catching quickly, licking hungrily at dry wood, spreading rapidly toward your feet. Heat builds swiftly, searing, choking, smoke stings your eyes, clouds your vision, fills your lungs painfully. Yet in this final moment, clarity comes. Your gift, your curse, reaches forth one last time, piercing the veil between present and future with astonishing clarity. You see it all, the village, struggling still beneath oppressive poverty and sickness, crops failing season after season, livestock dying, children succumbing endlessly to fever. You witness blame shifting desperately from one scapegoat to the next, yet their suffering remains unchanged. Your death resolves nothing, merely deepens the wound their ignorance continually opens. Your voice rises, desperate to be heard, the smoke stealing breath from your lungs, pain blistering your skin. You see only shadows, you cry, choking yet defiant. Your true enemy is ignorance. Your curse is not witchcraft, but blindness. The villagers watch silently, flames reflected in eyes wide with fearful awe. For a brief instant, some doubt flickers, yet superstition quickly smothers it. You close your eyes, resigned yet strangely at peace. Flames consume quickly now, pain dissolving into darkness, vision fading slowly into nothingness. As consciousness slips from your grasp, your mind drifts free of earthly torment. You see beyond this village, centuries into a future that remains unchanged. New faces, yet the same ignorance, poverty, fear. Generations suffering beneath the weight of their own blindness, endlessly repeating cycles of accusation, blame, and punishment. Your death, tragic yet inconsequential, will be forgotten quickly, merely another casualty in humanity's ceaseless war against itself. Darkness finally claims you, gentle and forgiving compared to the pain left behind. Your last prophecy, grim and undeniable, lingers softly in your mind as life ebbs slowly away. They will never learn. Morning comes, pale and unforgiving. The villagers scatter your ashes hastily, uncomfortable now beneath daylight's clarity. Yet your words haunt them subtly, echoing quietly in each heart. Crops still fail, children still die, misery remains, unyielding and relentless. No scapegoat can ease their burdens, no pyre can purge their fear. Gradually, your memory fades, replaced by new fears, fresh accusations, different faces bearing the same bitter burdens. Yet somewhere deep within, your final prophecy resonates still, a whisper of truth, fragile yet persistent, awaiting patiently the day they finally learn to listen. Until then, the village sleeps restlessly beneath skies forever clouded, trapped endlessly within cycles of misery and despair, blind to their true enemy, not witches, nor curses, nor visions of darkness, but ignorance itself. Your story ends quietly, forgotten by those who destroyed you, but remembered by time as a cautionary tale, the story of one whose greatest curse was to see clearly in a world determined to remain blind.